It's more than 2 weeks before Charleston County Council Chairman Elliott Summey and other Charleston leaders meet with the State Infrastructure Board to discuss the future of 526. In this special edition of Quintin'S Close-Ups, I sit down one-on-one with Chairman Elliott Summey. Let me just address the obvious. The $420 million. You actually told Channel 4 this recently, quote, "It's the opportunity to get the powers to be together to say, hey, listen, here are the facts. There's a lot of legal wrangling that goes on. We can't negotiate in public." So I'm wondering, what are the facts that you can tell us in public?
So you're talking about the Mark Clark,
Yes.
And you're referring to the contract that the county and the SCDOT and the State Infrastructure Bank entered into back in 2006.
Right.
So it's a long history, but as everyone knows, the county and the Infrastructure Bank have been back and forth over a period of years on whether or not to continue the completion of the Mark Clark project.
Right.
Some of the facts that can be told is the fact that while all this has been going on, the SCDOT has spent $30 million of that $420 million buying right of way, permitting the project.
Right.
They've been paying engineers, going through the NEPA process. The county has been supporting them in that process. And that's what makes this complicated. The other issues are that in that contract, the county was required to spend $117 million to fix state-owned roads inside Charleston County, which we have already done. We've lived up to our end of the contract. Quentin, in contract negotiations, it really can't be done by committee. No one involved in the negotiations has the ultimate authority to make the ultimate decision for either of their bodies. For instance, the Secretary of Transportation and the Chairman of the Highway Commissions in those meetings, the Chairman of the State Infrastructure Bank Board and his attorneys, and myself and our staff and attorneys are in these meetings.
Wow.
But anything that is agreed, the idea is to meet in a small group, try to understand what each group's bringing to the table from a perspective standpoint, and come up with some sort of agreement that we think we can go back and sell to our bodies. No promises are made in those meetings. Again, these meetings go for hours at a time sometimes, and it's a lot of trying to leverage, each group trying to leverage its best position for its prospective organization. So my job in all this is to protect Charleston County, and to protect the taxpayers of Charleston County, and that's what I'm going to do. Ultimately, though, it'll come down to County Council saying to me, we agree or disagree with what you've been able to negotiate. So far, we haven't gotten there. I'm not satisfied with what has been offered to us, nor do I. And all of County Council has been briefed on what we've been given. So while these things are happening behind closed doors, Council has been briefed by myself and our attorney and our staff. Every time we have a meeting, a couple days later, we sit down with Council in executive session and say, here's what's been put on the table. No one on this Council is satisfied. Even the folks who don't want to see the Mark Clark finished are not satisfied with what's been offered. We feel like we have spent Charleston County tax dollars upholding our end of the deal.
Right.
We feel that they should do the same. A contract is a contract, and it should be honored.
Yeah, and let me pick apart what you just said, because you said it's complicated. And I know you and an attorney have met with Sid for at least 3 or 4 times. Mm-hmm. But tell me this, where are you emotionally right now as we sit here?
Emotionally, I don't allow myself to get emotionally involved in this stuff. When we get to this point, this is no different than what I would do in my personal business. This is business.
Right.
And right now, my role is to conduct the business and protect my shareholders.
Right.
My shareholders are the voters and citizens of Charleston County.
Okay.
One of the things the attitudes I've tried to bring in the last 18 months to County Council is looking at our government as a business.
Yes.
We try to run it as a business. We try to be lean and mean. But we're unique. Our shareholders are also our customers.
Right.
So we have to give good customer service, constituent service, to our folks. But at the same time, we have to make sure we balance the the dollars and cents, and make sure that those customers who are also shareholders in our company are getting the best bang for the buck. And so that's my number one job.
Yes. And you also told
is to
Channel.
do that.
Oh yes, indeed. And you also told Channel 4 this, and you mentioned it just briefly a minute ago. They said if we spent 117 million, they would give us 420 million. We lived up to our end of the deal. I think they should live up to their deal. And the question is, where is the $420 million right now?
So far, the state has spent $30 million of that money on the project. It lies in the coffers at the State Infrastructure Bank. It's not as if, not much differently than when you were build a home or a building. If you go to pull a mortgage, they don't just hand you all the money.
Right.
It sits in an escrow account and you make draws. The DOT, what gets lost in all this is the county's not building this road. We're not designing this road, we're not permitting this road. The DOT is doing all that on our behalf, and they are signatory and a part of this contract. This is a tri-party agreement. So they have been living up to their end of the deal by doing the permitting and the design and buying the right-of-way. And every few months, they send a bill to the SID, it gets paid. That's how this has worked along the way. And so they've got the money sitting up there, and by God, they need to honor their contract.
Yeah. And you said that, like you mentioned this too earlier, we will take whatever steps necessary to protect the interests of Charleston. So what happens if those steps are not met or taken?
We will, again, council will sit down with our attorneys, we'll sit down with our staff, and we will expeditiously but cautiously explore our options. And we're gonna, and this isn't a small deal by any means.
Right.
This is a lot of money. It's a lot of time. 10 years has gone through this. If you look back at the history of Mark Clark, this project started in the 60s. It's multi-generational. So whatever decision we make, we would not take any next step that is a knee-jerk reaction. We're going to make sure that we take the right next step. So it's hard. I'm not going to assume what my council will do. I know what I would do. I think I know what they're going to do. I think I have a pretty good feel for what they want to do. But we're going to make that as a group. The majority will decide, and then we will stick together and take whatever next steps necessary.
You talk about what they want to do. When you get up there September 13th, and I think you're going along with Mayor Tettenberg, what do you think they'll do?
That's it?
Yes.
I'm hoping cooler heads will prevail. Quentin, every time that I think that I understand what they're going to do, they do something different. Like the last time we were up there, I was very sure that this would be the end of the project and the fighting would begin. Then they extended it. So, the worst part about this, you got good folks on both sides of this. It's not like anyone's evil or bad. They're good folks, or well-intended folks on both sides of this issue. We just happen to agree to disagree on some of this stuff, and we're going to do what we can to try to come up with a compromise that makes sense, that also provides good transportation for the folks who live in West Ashley and Johnson.
But then I have to take it back because I'm wondering this. You said that the Mark Clark project happened really in the 60s.
Started in the 60s.
And it wasn't really up until 10 years ago when it really came to fruition. How did politics get involved with this?
Oh man, anytime you're dealing with state money, politics is involved.
Okay.
And sadly, $420 million is a lot of money.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of needs in this state,
Right.
especially in transportation. We saw that in October.
Right.
Our roads were in bad condition before October,
Right.
and now they're worse, a lot worse. We got roads that still aren't open. We got bridges that are still out. So we have a history of neglect for our transportation system that goes back 30, 40 years. And $420 million in a lot of rural areas or other areas in the state can go a long way to making those roads right. And I understand that. What has to be balanced with that, though, is the fact that Charleston's the economic engine of South Carolina. notwithstanding Boeing or Daimler or any of these Volvo or any of these wonderful things that have happened in the last 4 or 5 years, the Port of Charleston, back to the colonial days, was one of the most popular and well-used ports. Us, Philadelphia and New York in the colonial days were our port. It drove commerce for the colonies. It drives commerce for South Carolina today. Right. There would be no BMW or Michelin without the port. But 100% of the problems that the port creates, traffic and trains and pollution, lies solely in the lap of the citizens of Charleston County. There's no way around it. 80% of the jobs created by the port happen in Greenville, Spartanburg, and Anderson counties. Right. You would think that there should be some balance. We've got a new port terminal coming online in December of 2019. They're going to add a vehicle to I-26 every 8 seconds on a section of I-26 that's already failed. They're going to add 4 to 8 mile-long trains to Norfolk Southern and CSX rail lines coming through the city of Charleston and the city of North Charleston that are going to cross Meeting Street Road, North Rhett, Rivers Avenue. Right. Quentin, we have folks who, in those trains across those roads, that our emergency vehicles can't get to, they're in when they need us the most. Okay? That's a life or death situation. We've got 150,000 residents that live in West Ashland, Johns Island, James Island, Wadmalaw, Seabrook, and Kiowa Islands, who can't move around well on a normal day. We've got a tropical depression heading our way. What if that was a hurricane? Tell me, how's the county going to get those folks out of here? The Mark Clark is not the hurricane evacuation route, okay? That keeps getting bandied about, and that's not true. Highway 17 is. But we got to get them to 17 somehow. Right. Main Road fails. Main Road was underwater last October. Right. People sat in traffic for 8 hours. Yeah. I'll tell you right now, Quinn, it keeps me up at night. Worrying about a mandatory evacuation of those communities. Not everyone's going to get out. And that falls solely, responsibility and guilt falls solely on the public officials who represent those areas for not providing the proper transportation needs for those folks. That falls on our lap. Wow. And by God, I'm going to make sure that I've done everything I can do, whether it's the Mark Clark, House and Sales Tax, bus rapid transit, right, fixing Main Road 17. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure my conscience is clear that I did everything I could do to provide for the safety of those folks. Wow. And I take that extremely seriously. And that, when you boil down being a local elected official, right, our basic responsibility is to provide for the safety of our citizens. Yes, whether it's fire, EMS, police, or transportation. Yeah. Transportation is a safety issue, not a convenience issue. And we have to change that mindset in this community that transportation is just as important as sanitation, fire, EMS, or police. We've got to get there. And I think people are. I think people are tired of sitting in this traffic on a regular basis. Think back to 1998 and 1998 or 1999 and Hurricane Floyd, right, and how much gridlock and how our transportation system failed, miserably failed. Now fast forward 16 years, and the 43 people a day that are moving to the Tri-County area, and how much we have grown in that time frame. Right. Failure in those situations is not an option. When people will die.
Speaking of which, describe to me the following one word: the LeGree Bridge bike lane.
Disappointing.
Your re-election.
I can't describe that one word.
Sure, go for it.
Happy I don't have an opponent.
Your future.
Evolving.
Okay. Well, Chairman Elliott Summey, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate this.
Thank you, Quentin.
Thank
Pleasure,
you.
man.
Thank you.
Always.
Thank you.